As you guys can see, I've got a special visitor tonight from Paizo. I've got Mr. McCreary with us. He's going to be talking Starfinder with us for probably about the next 45 minutes to an hour, and it's an honor to have you here, Rob. And I think everybody is excited about hearing about Paizo, you know, and Starfinder, how it got started and all that good stuff. So without further ado, I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do at Paizo, what you do with Starfinder, and what your day-to-day activities are, because I'm sure probably everybody wants to know.
All right. Well, hello, and thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. As you said, I'm Rob McCreary. I'm the creative director for Starfinder at Paizo. What does that mean? Like, what is my job? It's I'm responsible for the creative direction of Starfinder, which really incorporates a lot of different things. I mean, overall, it's kind of the sort of how, what the world is like, what the game is like, what sort of things we want to focus on, and so that can be, you know, everything from outlining new books to sort of deciding what various races or starships look like. There's approving licensing things, like if we have minis being made, then I'll look at the sculpts to make sure they match what we want. We'll brainstorm new ideas for new books, and if I have any time left over with that, then I'll actually get to work on some of the books too. And
that's cool. And get to play some too, probably, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get into this hobby that we love, you know, tabletop games, and how did you get into that? And did you get started as a young kid, or was it something that you picked up later in like college or something? Or
no, I started as a kid with the old red box basic set of D&D. Way back, actually, I think a friend of mine had D&D and had told me about it, and I asked for it, you know, for my parents, and they got me the expert box, and I was super excited until I opened it and realized that this is like the second thing. You know, I didn't have levels 1 through 3 to play with, and so, you know, but I read that book, and then finally, I think maybe like my next birthday or something, I got the red box, and that just, you know, I just took off from there.
Yes. So we're going to be talking about Starfinder, and how long was Starfinder under wraps before you guys actually officially announced it? And how did Starfinder, you know, how was Starfinder conceived, and, you know, what was the process of that?
Well, it was actually conceived to some extent in Pathfinder a number of years ago, because we released a book called Distant Worlds, which described the planets in the solar system around the planet of Galarian, which is where the Pathfinder game is set. And so that was sort of, for Pathfinder, this is what's on the planets. We've got a lot of people, our publisher in particular, Eric Mona, is really a fan of the old pulp stories, Sword and Planet type stuff. And so I think he's always wanted to do some kind of science fiction, science fantasy game. So it kind of all came together. We kind of had the beginning of a setting with Distant Worlds, and we're like, we've got a solar system. We just need to, you know, science it up a little bit. And that eventually turned into, well, maybe we should do a whole new game. And yeah, and it kind of turned into Starfinder. I would say we were working on it for just a few months before we announced it, actually, in terms of actually working on it, because when we announced it at, I believe, PaizoCon in 2016, and then, you know, overall it was about a year and a half of just really focusing. Fortunately, because it's built on the Pathfinder engine, we weren't having to create the entire thing from scratch. You know, we kind of had the beginnings of a system and the beginnings of a setting that we could kind of build off of.
That's cool. It seems like, you know, Starfinder has really been perceived in a positive way. And it seems like Starfinder is selling out all over the place. I know a lot of my viewers, they're, hey Dave, where do I get these books? Plus I've done a lot of reviews on all the products and stuff like that. And everybody always says in the comment sections, dude, you're selling me on this stuff, but everybody's out. Where do I get this stuff? You know, so was Starfinder conceived in such a way it kind of over exceeded your expectations on what the actual game would do from a popularity standpoint at launch?
Yeah, we were certainly hoping that it would be popular, but it's not something we'd ever done before. I mean, we've been so focused on Pathfinder that, it's like we know how to do fantasy stuff. If we bring out science fantasy, will the fans? We knew that we had a lot of fans that liked Distant Worlds for Pathfinder, and they were saying we should do something more with that. And so we're like, well, if we can get them to actually go to a different game, yeah, we certainly hoped for it. I think the fact that we sold out so quickly on our first print run and everything shows that maybe we underestimated the popularity a little bit, but we're getting more books out there and we want to do a lot more stuff. So we're happy with it, and we're excited that a lot of fans seem to be excited about it too.
Yeah, I've actually gone to SciFi City is my local game store, which is in the middle of the state. I'm on the coast, but I have to go to the middle state of Florida to SciFi City, and they actually had quite a few books, and that's what I've been recommending to all of my viewers, because most of the people will try to get it either on eBay or Amazon, and I know those outlets have been sold out, but I've been trying to say, hey, get into the game stores and get them, support the game stores too. And actually SciFi City had pretty much everything, all the map packs. They had the adventure paths. They had all that good stuff. So, yeah, we got a lot into distribution. So it's because the game industry, in terms of, there's a couple of big distributors that give to the bookstores and the game stores, and they buy the vast majority of the product. So, in terms of what we could sell on Paizo.com or to Amazon, it's like a lot of stuff went out to the game store. So if you haven't been able to find it, that's really is good advice. Go to your local game store, because there are a lot in distribution. And also another smart thing, get the subscription, because you're guaranteed to get a book. I have all of the subscriptions for the Starfinder stuff. And plus, when you have all of the subscriptions, it gives you a 15% discount on all of your your subscriptions, and plus any other purchases that you make. Most everything. Everything isn't guaranteed to get a discount. I think some third-party stuff isn't, but like I bought some Pathfinder Starship Corridors and stuff. Those map packs, I bought those. Those are 15% off. So I've been telling everybody, get into the subscriptions, and plus you get a free PDF too. So if you're in the digital world like I am, I do a lot of Fantasy Grounds. Having the PDF is a beautiful thing too. So, but I haven't got to play around the table yet with Starfinder, but after I make my big move at the beginning of the year, I'm definitely going to be running a Starfinder game, because I've got pretty much everything here that you guys have put out now. And
awesome.
I want to put this stuff to good use. So keep putting that stuff out.
Are you planning on running the adventure path, or going to do something on your own?
When I run stuff, I like to do like a base module, and then I like to change things up, and then I like to add stuff in for my players' background stories and stuff as well. So I'll be taking them into the vast and stuff with their using drift technology and stuff to get to the different planets and stuff. Plus, with the adventure path stuff, I like how you guys put more content in, and that's how you guys are going to introduce more stuff into the game anyway. So with those adventure paths, it's nice to see the other new planets starting to trickle in every couple months or so.
Right.
So D&D 5e has been a pretty popular thing for bringing. I think there's been quite a few numbers out there and polls, and I think tabletop games are more popular now than what they've ever been, especially with, when you start bringing technology in, and you got Fantasy Grounds, you've got Roll20 and all these other virtual tabletops. I think both from a around the table standpoint and an online presence, I think there's, from what I've read, I could not be 100% correct on this, I think tabletop games in general have been pretty popular, and probably more popular in any point in time. Now, have you guys done any kind of polls with Paizo on any kind of numbers for Starfinder? Maybe bringing new people into the game as well, and into our beautiful hobby that we all love. Maybe pulling in some of those sci-fi fans out there, because the industry really does need a good science fiction game, and I think Starfinder has done a really good job of that. So.
Yeah, it's a bit early for us to have done anything official, so I don't have any big numbers. We certainly we're hoping and are hoping to, we both want Pathfinder players and we want brand new players. We want people that like science fiction, that like science fantasy. The one thing that we do have that we can see is our Starfinder Society organized play program, which we started. It follows basically the same model as our Pathfinder Society organized play program. It kicked off at Gen Con this year when we released the game, and every table, every seat was sold out for that, and that's been continuing to other games and local stores and everything too. So I don't have the numbers for that offhand, but we've had a lot of people join the organized play program, and that shows. Again, some of those are Pathfinder players that are also playing Starfinder, but we're trying to get new people in as well. That's
good. So talking about the Pathfinder population that you guys have, and I know that you guys have a lot of old school and hard-nosed, dedicated players for Pathfinder. Now, how has the acceptance been for Starfinder, and what is how has the new rule changes from, because they are two separate games, and I realize that, but how has the acceptance with the old timers, how have they accepted Starfinder with the new rule changes and getting rid of like all of the 15 attacks around and the combat maneuver bonuses and defenses and stuff? Has it been pretty well accepted in the Pathfinder community?
Oh yeah, I think for the most part, people have been really excited about it, interested to see the changes. I think from old Pathfinder players, there's been a bit of a learning curve because looking at our message boards and talking to people, it's they kind of have in their head the way certain rules work, and then it's like, oh wait, it doesn't work this way in Starfinder, and so they kind of have to retrain themselves. But a lot of those changes that we made to make it a different game and to do the sort of things that we needed Starfinder to do that's different from Pathfinder, I think people have been very accepting, and we have gotten quite a good feedback. We've gotten some other feedback also of just like, hey, I don't know about this, and that's fine because can't hit everybody's buttons all the time.
This is one thing that I've learned in 5 years of doing this. You cannot make everybody happy, and it's the same way with you guys. So
that's true.
So do you guys have a private playtest for playtesting new content, or do you guys do that in-house? Because I have a lot of people that have inquired about, do you have any kind of playtest program that people can sign up for to get involved?
We normally only do playtests when we're releasing a big thing. For Starfinder, we did have, because we had a very accelerated production schedule on that, we had a closed playtest. So we had some groups that were invited to play the test, but we didn't open it out as we have with Pathfinder. That's pretty much for the big stuff that we need to really test out these things. In terms of sort of like the monthly products, we don't playtest those in-house regularly. We use a lot of freelance writers, and so we tell them it's kind of their responsibility if they're writing an adventure to playtest. Sometimes we'll do something and we're like, we need to see how this thing works, and so we might do a little bit of a playtest. But for people that want to kind of get engaged in the community or contribute to the game, that is rather than a playtest, because those are relatively infrequent, is the Starfinder Society organized play program, because that has monthly scenarios that we release as PDFs. You can play them at home, you can play them at game stores, at conventions, and that's kind of a shared world. People are playing through these scenarios, and the choices that they make, that their characters make, can inform the setting and what happens in the game too, because it's kind of like this big, just like gaming in general, it's a collaborative storytelling. So it also gives you a chance to, while it's not an official playtest, you're certainly using the rules, and our message boards are full of people that are, about finding problems, and then they can tell us about that. And so in some ways it can work as a playtest.
Yeah. So I think you kind of answered one of my next questions, was the production of all of this Starfinder content. I mean, in the 4 months that you guys have been out since Gen Con, you guys have actually put out quite a bit of stuff. Now, is most of that stuff done in-house with in-house employees, or now I know that you said that you've contracted some stuff out, so I was just kind of wanting to get the feel on, do you guys do everything in-house or do you contract it out? So, but I think you kind of answered that already.
Well, it's a mixture of both, because the initial things we use freelancers, and in some cases Paizo people will freelance for that stuff as well. And then when we get the manuscript in, a lot of our the people that are working on the books are developers, and so we'll take the text and develop it, and sort of we'll add some new content and all that kind of stuff. So and then for other things like the core rule book, that was almost entirely done in-house because we needed to create the game that we wanted to do, and we needed to be able to work on it every day. And at the beginning, we couldn't tell anybody about it, so that all had to be. So a lot of the rule books are done in-house. More of the other stuff we get freelance, but then it goes through a detailed process where lots of people have sort of input into it.
So how long does that process take from like conception to actually getting it done? Is it like a year-long process to create, say, part one of the Dead Sun's adventure path? Or I'm sure, I know that the core rule book probably took a long time to make, but stuff like the Alien Archive and all of the other, you've got the Pact Worlds coming out in March, and now you've announced another book coming out in July. I think you've got a weapon book coming out. So what is the time frame on how long it usually takes for you guys to make something from start to finish?
I mean, it really does vary by the product, and we have in Pathfinder, at least, we have some monthly product lines, and so you have to have a new book every month. So it's about a month worth of production time, but we're several months out as well because, besides all of the steps in-house from development and editing and art and layout and everything, then we have to ship it and get it printed and everything. So we're usually, at least, I'm trying to think of like what we're working on now. We're usually working in 6 to 8 months in advance for most things, and the actual amount of time depends on the project. And certain other things, that like the bigger rule books might go even farther out.
Yeah, plus you got to make sure you got it right anyway. So
yeah.
So about the rules now, and this is something that I hadn't included in the email, but when you guys were thinking about creating Starfinder when it actually became a reality, did you want to make it a more rule-light game compared to, say, Pathfinder? What was that part of the initial plan to, have things be a little bit simpler and a little bit more streamlined?
It definitely was. Pathfinder came out of 3.5, and a lot of people were not ready to give up the 3.5 rule set, and so we wanted to create Pathfinder to sort of build on that. And of course, in the years since then, we've created more and more and more content, which has made Pathfinder even more and more complex. I mean, to a certain extent, that's always going to happen as you create more content. But if you've got a giant book like the Pathfinder core rulebook or the Starfinder core rulebook, it can be a bit of a kind of a hurdle to get over when you see that. So we really wanted to, you can see from the beginning in the Starfinder core rulebook, we walk you through creating your character right off the bat to sort of ease you into it, because we did. And then, as you said, with some of the rules differences from Pathfinder, it was like, well, do we need it? Can we simplify this in a way that, just to keep things moving and keep things more fun at the table?
I see it as a perfect balance. This is what I tell my viewers, because a lot of people always ask me, is it a spitting image of 3.5 in Pathfinder? And I tell them, no, it's a totally different game. However, the core of it is based off of 3.5, but it is a perfect medium between a more rule-heavy type of Pathfinder, especially if you start going into the advanced books and stuff like that you've mentioned, and a very rule-light 5th edition. I say it's a perfect balance in between. And I'm not a big 3.5 fan, and my viewers can vouch for that. But I've actually really fallen in love with Starfinder because of getting rid of a lot of the attacks and getting rid of the combat maneuver bonuses and stuff. But I really appreciate it. And changing the bulk system to be more realistic than a dwarf being able to carry 700,000 pounds and stuff like that. Where are you going to put all that stuff in your backpack, man? I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Your 10,000 ball bearings that you've got and your 30,000 caltrops and whatever else you've got. So,
well, and the bulk system, there was a conversation about that, because that's one of the things in my games, encumbrance, that I just kind of ignore unless someone is really abusing it, but other people on the team are like, no, I use encumbrance. There are people that use encumbrance. We need to keep that. And we're like, well, what can we do to, so it's simplified so it's easier to use for the people that might not want to use it otherwise. But, if they don't, well, it's not a huge it's not a huge thing to leave out either if you don't want that in your game.
I mean, plus it's a little bit more realistic too, because if you think about it, every weapon, every suit of armor has a bulk value, and even though, yes, I know this is a game and all, but in real life you can't carry that much. I mean, even the strongest people, from a maneuverability standpoint, I mean, bulk does make a lot of sense in this game, and that was actually really nice to read when because it kept mentioning bulk, and I'm going, what the heck is bulk? Because like I said, I wasn't really experienced with Pathfinder or anything, so I started reading. I'm like, wow, this actually makes sense. So I'm going to ask you about the price points now with Starfinder and the products and stuff. Now, not only myself, but a lot of my other viewers and stuff, they've brought this up, and we've noticed that. Take, for instance, now the core book, Pathfinder and Starfinder, that's pretty much the same thing. And the $10 PDF is amazing, and the $10 PDF for the Alien Archive. But when we start looking at like the adventure paths, it's pretty much the same price point and it's about 65 to 69 pages or something like that. And the adventure paths for Starfinder is over 100 pages. And the Alien Archive is pretty much half of a book compared to what a normal bestiary would be, minus a couple of bucks. So is there any insight to that? And is there a reason for that? Is it just like maybe a production cost or something like that? Because, paying, 40, 50 bucks for half of a book, that normally that's what you would get for another game, a lot of people ask questions for that. So I was just kind of wanting to know your insight, if you even have any at all on that, because that's, that is a question that comes up quite a bit.
Sure. Well, with the caveat that I'm the creative director and not the business director, it is, I mean, to be quite honest, that sort of thing is done at a higher level of the company than me, the sort of business side. I mean, I can say that, just like everything, printing costs and production costs do increase. And I think that we try, for the Pathfinder books, we've tried to keep the prices down on those. We've had to raise the prices up a few times, but we've got a whole lot of Pathfinder fans, and they've been used to doing it. And so it's like, well, with the new game, it's priced sort of more accurately for what it should be. But there's lots of factors all involved, and I can't give like one answer for it, because again, it's like what's in the book, not the price that's on the outside cover, is what I'm responsible for.
Fair play, man. Fair play. Yeah, just something that I had to ask. So you guys are doing really well with Starfinder. All right. Now, if the popularity increases into the future, do you guys have any kind of plans as it gains momentum? Do you have any plans to like ramp up the production and start creating more content, or are you guys going to keep it, just keep it at status quo and just keep, hardbacks coming out every 3-4 months, adventure paths every other month, map packs every month, a month and a half? You guys plan on doing anything more if the popularity catches up to, say, like maybe Pathfinder or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have those plans right now. I mean, if you look back at the history of Pathfinder, we're releasing a lot more things than we did at the beginning of that game. So it's certainly not unheard of. I just keep telling myself the game's only been out for a couple months, and as I mentioned earlier, with the fact that we work several months out, even once we're changing that, our fans aren't going to see that for several months later. Yeah. So I would say, if people want it, we're going to do our best to do it. We also have to make sure that we don't, work ourselves to death and everything, because we're still a pretty small team. But if the fans support it and everything, and we can expand, I'm sure we'd love to do that.
That's awesome. So, what do you personally like about Starfinder? What are some of the mechanics that you actually really like about Starfinder?
I was really excited about it from the beginning, because I've always been a huge sci-fi fan. I mean, it's weird because I've always played like fantasy RPGs, but I read a lot more science fiction and watch science fiction shows and movies. So the one thing you get in science fiction that you don't get in fantasy usually is starships. So the whole starships, the whole customizing your own starship, and the Starship Combat is super awesome. I love that. I love the new races and the new classes, and just really, I've been working I've been working with Paizo for about 8 years now, and working on Pathfinder, and it's all great, but I kind of know it, quite a lot, and so it's also just been fun playing with a whole bunch of new toys, in the setting and in the story and everything, and just getting to play around with that stuff has been a lot of fun for me as well.
That's what really sold me on Starfinder as well, was the whole concept of Starship Combat. And that to me, it seems like that is a huge seller for Starfinder, because I mean, you guys have actually dedicated pretty huge and bulky chapters to Starship creation and Starship Combat, and it's not clunky. I mean, the first time that my players and we did Starship Combat, it went flawlessly with the just a few rounds, 3 or 4 rounds of Starship Combat. Everybody gets involved, whether you're a captain or a gunner or an engineer. And I also am a huge Savage Worlds fan. And chases and stuff like that, Savage Worlds is great, but it kind of, if you have a bad draw on a card, then you're kind of at the tail end, and you really can't contribute a whole lot, especially if you have a club card, then you're pretty much out of commission. But with Starship Combat in Starfinder, it gets everybody involved, and it's like you can actually make a difference, whether if you're trying to beef up attacks on with the gunner, or help the pilot maneuver the ship a little bit better. I think it's great the way you guys put that together. So that had to be a huge designing process to do that, and especially with the average level of your party compared to the amount of points that your ship gets and the automatic upgrades that your ship gets. You don't have to spend tens of thousands of credits, and credits is another thing that is awesome. No more gold coins, silver coins, no more carrying 50,000 gold in a small little pouch. Yeah, great job of that Starship Combat, man. That's really good. My players loved it. So
thank you. I mean, we say that the sort of core assumption is that you're playing the crew of a starship. That doesn't mean you could have an entire campaign set on a planet where you never go in a starship, but that's kind of our assumption. And if you look at shows like Firefly or something, everybody had something to do on the ship, and so we wanted to make sure that we could do the same thing in Starfinder. And
plus, players get a sense of ownership with their character. But it also now gives them another added layer with a sense of ownership with their spaceship. Like, oh man, how can we can get a bigger core so we can start putting more stuff onto our ship, more guns and turrets, and we can put a holodeck in there, or maybe some cargo holds or smuggler holds. Yeah, it's really good how it's been done, and I can't compliment that enough. So, what is your favorite race, your favorite class, and your favorite theme in Starfinder?
My favorite race is the Vesk, the big lizard people. Just because, I don't know, they're cool. They're big lizard people. They've got their own empire and everything. So I really like them quite a bit. Technomancer is my favorite class. I've just always liked the idea of that concept of blending magic and technology together. So I really like that. And then theme, I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so it's Ace Pilot. I mean, that's Luke Skywalker right there. So, or Han Solo for that matter.
Every time we play, my players, we always say Star whatever. So if it's a Star YouTube, one of my players is an Icon theme, and he's like this huge. He's also a mechanic, so his little droid follows him around, recording everything as he's broadcasting it live to the space web, as we call it, and space tube, and it's great. So I like the Vesk as well, and I like how the Vesk tried to take everything over, and then it was kind of plus with the Hive as well. So I like the Vesk. I like the Solarian. I like it is one of the more complex classes in Starfinder, and I like that, especially with the gems and the weapons, and the crystals and the weapons. But I think for a theme, I kind of like all of them. I mean, it just depends on which kind of character that I'm going to play. So,
of course, yeah.
So, are you running any Starfinder games? Are you running any Pathfinder games, or are you just too busy? You don't have any time, like you were saying.
At the moment, I'm too busy. We had several playtest games going while we were working on the core rule book to test out the different things, and and in the big ramp up to Gen Con for the release this year, and then kind of after that, everyone's kind of like, ah. So there's been a lot of talk around the office though about starting up some games in the new year. So I hope that we can get some games going, because currently I'm not in any campaigns either for Starfinder or Pathfinder. They're all kind of on hiatus at the moment.
Yeah. So do you have anything that you can talk about? Like cool things that are coming out for Starfinder in the future, or can you give us any insight to if Galarian's going to be expanded on, and maybe we're going to find a little bit of information out about Galarian and the gap, and anything secretive that you can tell us? Nobody's going to be watching this. I won't tell anybody. So.
Okay. In reverse order, I mean, both with the gap and with Galarian being missing, those are kind of the two key mysteries of the setting, and as a result, we are not going to touch them. From a purely meta standpoint, because Pathfinder and Starfinder share the same universe, share the same setting. Starfinder takes place in a possible future of Pathfinder. One of the reasons for the gap is to sort of draw a line between these, so that if some king is overthrown in Pathfinder, that it won't necessarily, because who knows what happened during the gap. So we want, and it's the same kind of thing, because if there are people who are playing both Pathfinder and Starfinder games, and so if they do something on Galarian, and then Galarian is also in some world-altering event, that could change Starfinder. And so we kind of wanted to keep them as separate games. And and we say about Galarian, for the people that are familiar with it, that although it's not in Starfinder, it is somewhere, it is safe. The descendants of the people are still living there and everything. It's just nobody in Starfinder can get to it. Now, of course, GMs can do whatever they want in their home games. If they want to play with that mystery and create a whole bunch of things, that's up to them. But we are not going to do that, because that's the mystery that we want to keep. But that's what the Starfinder Society in the setting is trying to find out. What is the gap? What memories can we recover from this period?
Except for everybody, they're safe except for those few space goblins that actually made it to Absalom Station to start in the lower decks. So. You were mentioning miniatures, how you were going to be putting miniatures out, and I see that there's quite a few of the pewter miniatures on the Paizo site now. Now, is there going to be any plans to do boxes of the miniatures like you've done with Rise of the Rune Lords and stuff? The plastic or the resin miniatures that are already painted and stuff for us non-artistic people.
Yeah, Ninja Division is the one who's doing the Starfinder minis for us. Right now, they've got resin ones. They just did a Kickstarter for some more resin, and then their plan is to do pre-painted minis. I don't remember the date for when those are going to come out offhand. You can find it on Paizo.com. But yeah, they're kind of starting with that for the sculpts, and then we're definitely going to be moving into pre-painted minis of both characters and starships, because you need those for Starship Combat.
Yeah, you're going to be doing like box sets for the adventure paths and stuff as well. I know you can't do it up front because of you're releasing them every 2 months or so.
Right.
Is there going to be any kind of plans to do stuff like that? And especially with the, now that you have the pawn boxes out for the core book, you've got one coming out in a couple months for the Packed Worlds, and with the new Alien Archive, you guys are going to be doing the box sets for like Dead Suns and stuff too.
We'll definitely be doing pawn sets for the Adventure Pass. There will be a Dead Suns pawn set. That's the sort of thing that we can make those decisions on, because we do pawn sets in-house. The minis we license out to other companies like Ninja Division. So it's not solely us that makes those decisions. I think that I don't think we have any plans to do AP specific minis yet, but like I said, everything is still new. So in 2 months, 6 months, a year, who knows? Everything could change, and we could have all sorts of new stuff. But definitely we'll be doing pawn sets for those from Paizo. Especially,
as the game gets more popular. Yeah, definitely, for sure. So is there any kind of cool projects or anything that you guys are working on for Starfinder that you can leak a little information out to everybody?
Can't leak too much. You mentioned a couple of things, and that's pretty much what I can talk about now. Like you said, the next The next big thing is Pact Worlds. That's our big setting book. There's a setting chapter in the core rulebook that kind of gives you an overview, but this really goes into a lot more detail about the planets of the Pact Worlds. There's for each of the main planets of the Pact Worlds, there's an associated theme. So we're expanding the themes. We've got some new gear and new feats and new spells as well. We've also got some new playable races, some new alien races that are native to the Pact Worlds that are going to show up here for the first time. So that'll provide more aliens to populate your cantinas and your starships with.
There's a ton already. You guys have pumped out the races, man. I mean, there's like 25 alone in the Alien Archive, which was
yeah. Well, you have to be able to have a Star Wars cantina scene, and that's one of the things I agree. Play the weird alien. We want people to do that.
I totally agree. So do you got a couple more minutes? Maybe we can ask a few viewers if they have any questions, and
sure,
want to hang around for a couple more. So how about any of the viewers out there? You guys are watching. You guys have any questions for Mr. McCreary here? Ask away.
Oh, sorry. I'll also say you mentioned the Armory too, which is coming out in the summer, which is our big equipment book. So there's going to be lots more laser pistols and plasma rifles, and basically you can look at the equipment chapter and just imagine it in full book form. And we're going to throw all sorts of new starships. And actually, there's not new starships in that one. There are new starships in the Pact Worlds book.
If it's anything like Ultimate Equipment, I love Ultimate Equipment. I use that as a reference all the time for all kinds of different games that I play. That's, I have my favorite books of all time for each type of book, like a player's book or an all-in-one book. But that is by far the best equipment book that I've ever seen. When I was at the game store, I was looking through it. I was like, wow, I got to get this. This is actually really good, especially with art for just about every single thing. That was pretty nice to see. So let's see if anybody's got any questions out here. Doesn't look like one of my players, she says, we say space, not star. So like space burritos or space rations or space tube. Yeah, you're totally right.
We do that on the Starfinder team as well. The only thing we do star for is the office that we share. We call it the Star Chamber, but everything else is space, whatever. We need more space feats or,
Well, I think everybody is a little shy. Usually everybody's asking questions and stuff by this point. And I'm scrolling up into the chat and I really don't see any questions except for what am I wearing and so I see Official Paizo's in here. And they also mentioned that you can get the books in your local game stores. I'll do one last call. I'm not going to keep you too much, Rob. So it doesn't look like anybody's got any questions. So I appreciate you coming on, man. I totally appreciate it.
Oh, sure. I'm happy to be here. And we'll keep putting stuff out. Those are the Pact Worlds and Armory are the two big things that are coming out. But we'll have more of the flip mats coming out every other month. We'll have some pawn sets like I talked about. And in August of next year, we haven't announced exactly what it is, but we'll have another adventure path starting once Dead Suns wraps up. We still have, I think, 3 volumes of Dead Suns still to come out. Yep. So
I just got volume 3 today, so I know it was shipped out, so I just haven't opened up the box yet. So I actually got a question for you, Rob. Can you hang around for a question? What is the procedure for salvaging other starships? Is there and I don't think that's actually talked about, but is there any kind of rules or optional stuff that you can do for salvaging a ship, maybe into the byproduct or something like that?
Yeah, well, the main thing, if you look at the Starship rules, we didn't actually price starships because they're constructed with build points, and the main reason for that is you've got a bunch of adventurers, you're going around, on a job, and you get some money, you get some credits for it. If you have to pay for your starship and your starship upgrades, then there's always the question of, well, do we spend money on the ship and then we don't have weapons to keep us competitive at different levels, or the same thing, you put all your money in, instead of getting a ship, you put all in your weapons and then you're far overpowered. So we had to separate those two economies out. So the sort of in-game reason for like how do you salvage a starship is every time you go up a level, you automatically get new build points to upgrade your ship. And so there's the story reason behind that is, well, you can assume that when you defeat a ship, you're probably salvaging some of that kind of stuff, or it just becomes kind of whatever story the group wants to play. So there's not direct rules for that because it's a separate economy. A GM certainly could say, oh, here, you can salvage this weapon and then put that on there. But as the game is designed, it's kind of like we want the PCs to choose what they put on their ship. So if they want to put 2 gyro lasers on their starship, but the last ship they fought had a flat cannon or something, it's like, it's easier to say, you got these gyro lasers that you're now putting on your ship from one of those ships you did. So it's a little hand wavy, but it keeps the balance between starships and regular combat better by separating them that way.
That was one thing that I liked about starship creation, taking the APL, the average party level, and using that as a basis on how many UPBs that you would actually get to spend on your ship and upgrades and stuff like that. I'm glad that is separate, and I was nice not to see 300,000 credits for a drift engine or 200,000 credits for a Mark I core or something like that. So I guess it would probably also be up to the game master if they wanted to do something on, what is the what can you repair stuff with? What is that small little, it's like a little byproduct sometimes you find.
That's the UPBs, the universal polymer bases.
That's it, the polymer bases, yeah. Maybe, I don't know, it's up to the GM. Maybe if you want to, salvage it in the UPBs or something like that. So, yeah.
Sure. And I know that on the message boards at Paizo.com, I've seen people talking about, like, I want to figure out how, and so they're pricing out starships and how you can do it. So there's certainly people out there that have thought that same thing. And you just, you can look at the message boards on Paizo.com or other places, and I'm sure you can find somebody that's created a subsystem that, you can adopt for your own game if you really want to go that way.
That want to go the micromanagement of that. I like it like it is. I'm not going to make my players do that. I mean, it's already going to be fun enough for them to get an occasional upgrade and stuff from time to time. So, and
that's part of the simplification thing we were talking about earlier is just, for the people that don't want all that added complexity, it's just every level you get more build points, and where you get the stuff we kind of hand wave or incorporate in the story, that's good for those people as well. So they don't have to worry about rules for exactly how they get all of their upgrades on their ship.
I have another person asking a question. Shartal, if starting a new game with players and GM being new, would it be advisable to use only the core races, or would adding the archive races as player options not add too much complexity to a new system that is being learned as we go? I think
that's a good question.
But I think it's so rule-eyed. I don't think the alien archive races are that much more complex. I mean, you have some with +4 to attributes, but then you have, minuses as well. So it kind of, the pros and the cons, they kind of counterbalance themselves out as they do with the races in the core book. But
for the most part, I think they can be brought in. There's a few things. I think one thing that that has to be paid attention to is some of the large races from Alien Archive, because they take up more space, and so there can be some issues with that. So you just have to realize that they're going to take up more space and everything, and that because of that, it's going to change, maybe draw more fire from other people. I don't know, but it shouldn't be significantly harder than just the core races.
You're going to have to carry around 55 in your cargo bay. You're going to have to carry around 55-gallon drums of lube, space lube, to push you down that 5-foot haul as a 10-foot wide creature. So.
Yeah, just make sure you draw your maps better. But certainly, all of the core races are. Those are the ones designed from the ground up as playable races, as opposed to these are monsters who you can play. So they certainly have a lot more story behind them and are more integrated into the setting, because those are the most common races you'll find.
Yeah. Plus, some of those Alien Archive playable races may not be liked in certain areas. They might not even be wanted on Absalom Station. So, but then again, that could lead for good plot too, as you try to disguise yourself and try to sneak in Absalom Station or something. So I would say go for it.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, don't restrict it. It's not too complicated. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go, Rob. And man, like I said,
all right,
really appreciate you taking time out of your night and coming on here and visiting with us for 45 minutes to an hour, and hopefully maybe we can have you on later on.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'd love to come back.
All right, cool, man. Thanks a lot, Rob, everybody. Rob McCreary from Paizo and Starfinder. So thanks again, Rob, and we'll see you again soon. And I wish you nothing but luck with and success with Starfinder.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.